Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome. Justice Serve TV is on the air again, or is it still? Yes, anyway, we're back for the evening recap. Good to have you along. Michael Bryant here.
Hi, Michael Bryant, Linda Kenney, Baden here. I left you alone for a couple hours because, Toby the Poodle was having a fit today. He was, so I thought instead of him barking, I would just put a Toby the Poodle on pin. But you're not looking, you see. You don't
Hold on
even
a
know.
second. I had to shut that down. Okay.
There you go. You don't even know. See, that's Toby the Poodle. Look, Toby.
You've
There you go.
miniaturized your dog.
I've
and you're now wearing
miniaturized
it
him.
on your lapel. Okay.
I think all these little things, and I thought in honor of Jennifer McCabe, I'd bring an effing toothbrush. Okay? Because all right, let me tell it this way: if this is what prevents you from talking to the FBI, of which I think she has opened the door, but Judge Kenney is not going to allow it to happen. I think she opened the door with
that door only swings one way.
Yeah, it swings one way. He wants to hit Alan Jackson in the proverbial ass. Excuse me. I bought the proverbial toothbrush because to me, this testimony and then her little dig. I don't know if the jury gets it. I hope they get it. I hope they get it.
I hope they do too. I try and
hate the wrong word. He hates the wrong one. I'm sorry.
You dislike?
Dislike.
You dislike it intensely?
Yeah,
I try and sanitize my brain from all that I've learned, but I think I've spent too much time in Dedham and Canton because nothing is outside my memory now. But for this jury, in theory, they know far less than most of us who have been watching this. And so it is hard to tell sometimes, what is this doing to them? Are they thinking this is ridiculous or are they buying it? Yeah. The only thing that you missed this afternoon, other than the big finish, of course, was the recross, the redirect, and it was not a lot going on. I have to admit, Brendan had his cleanup on aisle 5. He had quite a bit to try to do, and it was not. It just wasn't very helpful.
Clean up on aisle 5 is to have her read somebody else's text to see if she agrees with the same mindset of somebody else. I have never heard of that before. Well, it was all the cases I've tried in all my years, right?
Talk about opening the door, because that's arguably how this happened. Alan Jackson was going through these group chats to suggest there was collusion. Let's get the story straight. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. And so that really allowed Brennan to come up with texts that suggest, well, no, these were just, it was an emotional time. You were venting. It was important. And so, he's reading off all these emails or texts that say things like, it's so difficult. You must be just heartbroken. And somebody texting, you need to, get some help. Tell somebody about this, like professional mental help. So I understand what he was trying to do. I just don't think it's very helpful.
Professional mental help, or tell them the guy never came into the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that logic. Now, I'd be more emotional. I'd be upset if I lost Toby the pin more than that guy coming into the house, unless
the guy did not come in the house. Don't forget, the guy did not come in the house. And as we see the very end, we're basically this recap is going to involve the last chunk. That's the legal term, the last chunk of the testimony in the cross-examination, because it got fun. It was well done. It ended with a nice crescendo, and there was some battling back and forth. And this jury gets to decide if they believe Jen McCabe or not, and that's the bottom line. So,
and do they believe the state's medical examiner who says the car didn't hit him? The state's neuropathologist.
Yeah, well, they haven't heard those yet. They haven't heard those yet.
I understand. I understand. I'm just reminding everybody about the burden of proof. And the FBI pathologist who said the car didn't hit him, and the biomechanical engineer, and the accident reconstruction that said the car didn't hit him. If they believe all those, okay.
Maybe they'll all have different memories, though. It's hard to tell at this point. It hasn't come in yet. I will tell you this, as I mentioned earlier. The second count, which is manslaughter, driving under the influence connection. So this last witness of the day, of the week, Ms. Knowles, Hannah Knowles, is the toxic crime lab person. And we've talked before about the retrograde extrapolation,
I know all
right?
about that.
And it came down to 0.14 to 0.28, which to me is quite the broad range. But
That's a broad range, and it came down by allowing, and this is where the defense did make a misstep, and I've said it before. Elizabeth Little should not have been crossing that doctor. I crossed that doctor; he wouldn't have even get anything. A hospital lab should not be giving the blood
forensic
for
material, yes.
for a murder case. Okay, now a lot of times they do, and there's a special protocol. This special protocol about taking blood was not used. Okay, simple as that.
Yeah, and that's what Yannetti used for his cross-examination of the witness. That's all. He differentiated her testing as a forensic lab versus Mr. Gary. What was his name? Gary Fallow.
You have to know the
Fallow.
differences. You have to be able to go into the bench rest. You have to go there and you have to look at their computers. You have to go to the state. It's an art, and I will say, unfortunately, I've wasted much part of my life dealing with this art. So, and I think Yannetti had a harder time because Little let him. He got away from her. He got away from her.
Well,
That's the only thing I'll say.
Yeah, you're talking about Little and how she did with Fallow. I'm just talking about the cross-examination of Yannetti on this woman, who I believe, if you look at her testimony, she's given them the prima facie element they need for count number 2. That's it.
You're absolutely
and it's there. So for what it's worth, that's in the mix. They've got more work to do, but I will throw them a bone when they've earned it, and that's a prima facie element. They had to get that, and they got it. Okay, so we have some help today.
Alan Jackson needed me on that witness.
He needed you on that. It's interesting that they did have Ms. Little do that witness, because that suggests, just like we heard Lawley today do this Hannah Knowles. It's clear to everybody, including the jury, that they think these are lesser witnesses. And I'm not so sure that was the right call with Mr. Attitude, Mr. Fallow. So, as I was going to say, we got some special help on our recap tonight, coming to us from some locations unknown. The famous, the very popular, the very shy Will, the glarer, is here. Will, wake up. Will.
Hey.
What's happening, man?
Will, look at that smile. we all buy toothbrushes now, right? So we have that smile because we can't talk unless we brush our teeth.
Totally. Yeah. Apparently. Can't. I mean, when the feds come, first thing I'm thinking about.
You got to be prepared.
Yeah. First thing I'm thinking about. Of course.
Hygiene, very important if you're being interviewed by those other officers from that other agency.
I'm checking BO.
That's right. See?
Yeah, usually you say you have to pee because you have to go to the bathroom or something else.
Well, remember, these are the same officers that she told a lie about who she was. She said she was her sister first. And then when they track her down to inside the house, then it's, I need the 10 minutes. So she was continually trying to evade until she had to chat with him. So, Will, what do you think of Miss McCabe's testimony this go around?
Just, I mean, a whole bucket full of lies for 3 days, just constant lying, which is what we expected. But it was funny because I didn't watch it live Wednesday because after lunch there was Turtle Boys hearing, so I ended my live and then covered that. But I did the recap and watched it yesterday, and it seemed like Alan Jackson was having a really hard time with Jen McCabe because she was just stonewalling him constantly and putting on this very manipulative, innocent soccer mom act and looking at the jury every time she's talking and saying, I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer your questions. I'm so sorry. Very different Jen McCabe than very different Jen McCabe than we saw at the first trial. But when I stopped when I finished watching that yesterday, I thought, man, that was really bad for Alan Jackson. But then today, seeing where that line of questioning for the prior 2 days before today led, it made me think Alan Jackson's just brilliant. This is all part of it. This is all he wanted her to feel comfortable, I believe. I think he wanted her to feel confident he wanted her to get arrogant even, so that when he got to those hard questions about Brian Albert not going into the house when she could have gone in the house, and these text messages and all of this stuff, it's like he waited. He wanted to really establish. I feel like he wanted to make the jury sick and tired of her lies before he got to those things. And then once he got to those things, the jury is gonna be like, I am sick of this woman. I am sick of her lies. So
I wasn't sure. I thought,
I may be overthinking it, but
no, I know. Tell me about this. I thought that he was getting stymied on Wednesday because the judge wouldn't let him do a proper cross-examination. Every time he went to impeach her with something, the judge will let her read it, or let her answer, let her read War and Peace, let her answer a question like she's reading War and Peace. Instead, and
right.
that Judge Kenney, and I thought that led to frustration. Therefore, Alan, being a very good lawyer, he sat down yesterday and said, "Okay, how are we going to change this? We're gonna approach her a little bit differently, and we're not going to give her the opportunity to refresh her recollection, which, of course, nothing ever did. Right? We're just going to tell her what she said that was different, And I think that was a big tactical difference.
And there's a point yesterday where the judge said, "Your question was argumentative. She's answered in kind." I mean, that I don't remember that day in law school where that's trial practice 101. Okay.
Yeah, I was definitely the way that I saw it was, I mean, because I'm not going to argue with Linda at all, because
No,
because
that
I would.
No, you see it differently than I see it as a lawyer. Okay.
Sure.
So you see it as a juror. So I think that your viewpoint may be even more valid. I just see it as a lawyer.
Right. But I was also, I also try to think of like, what is Alan Jackson's strategy? What is he thinking? Like, was he doing this on purpose? And I like to give him the benefit of the doubt just because I like Alan Jackson as much as I do. So, I just might be fanboying for all I know, you know what I mean? But he's definitely, like, I feel like if Judge Bev was doing what he was doing, because I know for a fact that Alan Jackson is aware of Judge Beverly Kenney and her tactics and what he's doing. And so he has to like apply those things when he's going to do his questioning. His focus is, how is the jury going to interpret this? And if Beverly Kenney is also an obstacle on top of dealing with Jennifer McCabe, on top of dealing with Hank Brennan, then I'll just deal with I'll factor in Beverly Kenney in my obstacles as I'm trying to get this woman, or at least get this jury to see what this woman is. Because everything, I mean, you can't deny that the way that he asked the questions, she was stuck in a position to where she had to play dumb about things that nobody's going to believe that you don't know and you can't answer. There's no reason why you're dancing around this. If you're being truthful, if you're trying to get justice for your friend who died and the person who you think is responsible is sitting right in front of you, and you're here at her trial trying to get her convicted, then you should be able to answer every question forthcomingly. There's no reason why you can't. And showing the jury for 3 days straight that she couldn't do that is the overall statement I think he was trying to make with the jury.
And she kept doing these little digs, right? She kept doing these little digs and getting additional information. And so our question, our members have a couple questions. Can what Jennifer McCabe said about the FBI open the door for the defense? Michael Bryant, I think I had to throw that to you.
Yeah. Well, what she said about the FBI, since it wasn't about the FBI, of course, it was about some officers from another agency. So I'm assuming the question means what she said about
I sat with him 2 times, and they came back, and I sat with him 2 times, and that investigation is closed, Mr. Jackson. That's what she said.
Yes, I do remember saying that. That investigation is closed, which I thought was very interesting. So it's not going to come up again, or it's not going to matter. So I'm not sure how far the door might be open, because I think the person with their foot against and perhaps shoulder against the door is Judge C. If this door opening would help the defense, it's far less likely to happen. I still don't understand why FBI is a four-letter word, so to speak.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Makes no
You
sense.
know, what's
Why-
the big deal?
How does Karen Reed not have the right for the jury to know all of the truth? Isn't the whole point to get to the truth? So why would you block the jury from knowing such a vital piece of information that the feds hired ARCA, that the feds were conducting their own investigation? I feel like that's important. Karen Reed has a right for the jury to know that, I believe. It makes no ethical sense as to why Beverly Cannoni would block the jury from knowing that.
I agree with you, because I think who she lied to, and I've said this a number of times, is important. She wasn't lying to the dog catcher down the street. She's lying to the Department of Justice, the FBI, right? And how it carries weight. I think that who she lied to is extremely important here. And I think the defense team is going to make some kind of motion. We'll see it, because they got to protect the record, and we'll see it be denied, but they have to make some kind of motion. And Smarter Harry says, can Jen be called by the defense when they present? I don't know why they'd want her to call her.
I can't imagine. She's fried. I don't know what else you could use her for. I still think, though, that once she threw in that last little reference to pieces of taillight under and around her good friend Officer John O'Keefe's body, that there's something to do with that. First time we've heard you saw some taillight pieces. Do tell, what happened? But I'm not recalling her just for that. So I'd be shocked unless something comes up in there plumbing through other witnesses that suggest she can shed light on something or be impeached on something. I can't imagine they would want to bring her back. And I don't know if Judge C would allow it. She ultimately you'd have to make a motion of sorts to bring her back, and I don't know if the judge would allow it.
Yeah. Anyhow,
Probably
I thought she was my view was that she was unlikable. My view is that it looked like she lied. It looked like she was trying to help the prosecution, and it looked like she was trying to put Karen Reed in jail instead of being an honest witness, like the best friend of John O'Keefe was when he got on the stand, and you believed every single word he said, good, bad, and indifferent.
Here are my three major takeaways. You guys give me your take on my takeaways. I'm sorry, I hurt my pinky playing softball last night. Does that sound kind of wimpy? I stopped the line drive with my pinky, and now it's a little out of shape.
No, that happens to everybody, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, number one is the continued reference to I did it. I hit him. Sprinkled it in everywhere she possibly could. The pleading that if she pleads out, this is over, and this was done within hours of the event. How does that even come into your mind unless you've got some backstory that you haven't shared with anybody? And then the punctuation to the day when Alan Jackson pressed her about not getting help for her good friend from somebody who's 30 feet away and has years and years experience as a first responder. Those three alone, to me, which also involves a lot of her enhanced recollections. That to me, that just it makes her very difficult to believe on anything but who cares facts. Some of the fundamental facts, maybe I believe her on those, but who cares? Yeah. Should we listen to some of the cross and then kind of chat about that? Is that
although let me tell you, Liz 888, member for 1 month, great show, and Will, my buddy, too. Okay, so you're loved, you're beloved.
Yeah, okay. Liz is great. She's always in my chat. She's great, super supportive.
Okay. So we're just going to take a look at some of this. Right. We'll stop and chat, and let's see where we are.
January 30th. About a minute later, you see a phone call from you to Michael Proctor lasting about 22 minutes, correct?
Yes.
January 30th at approximately 4:45 p.m., you see a call from Michael Proctor to you, call lasting about 10 minutes.
Correct.
Going on to the next day, January 31st, you see a phone call from you to Michael Proctor at 11:51 a.m., just before noon, lasting about 4 minutes, correct?
Yes.
Take a look at the second document, if you will. That covers that document, or that time frame.
Okay.
The second document, you should see some highlights, and I'm going to ask you to start where there's a tab at February 14, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know they're getting to the point here. Here we go.
At 5:50 p.m., do you see a call on March 1st between you and Michael Proctor lasting about 12 minutes.
Yes.
And then finally on March 29th, 2022, do you see a call at about 3:27 p.m. lasting about 4 minutes?
I'm sorry, what was the date?
March 29th?
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay, and that's about a 4-minute call at 3:27 in the afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, and you had in fact, and that's all I have on those records. Thank you for
Okay.
that, Ms.
Okay,
McCabe.
before I move on to something more scintillating, I'm trying to find a configuration. There's Will. Will was buried behind a comment, so I wanted to find a configuration that's a little better. So this is setting up some of the Proctor, back and forth. So Will, is the prosecution going to call Proctor, or are we going to leave that for the defense to do?
Oh, the defense is going to call Proctor. I mean, I the only way that I could see the prosecution calling Proctor up is if there's some sort of revelation that Brennan has, that some weird outlandish strategy. But in theory, I don't see how the prosecution calling Proctor to the stand is going to help their case at all, especially since it hurt their case as bad as it did the first trial. I mean, the only thing the jury really took away from Proctor's testimony were the text messages that he was sending other cops and friends about Karen Reed. And that's just going to be that's going to be the only thing the jury's going to be able to pay attention to, especially considering the fact that the tactics in the investigation conducted by Proctor were underwhelming, to say the least. I mean, they were lazy. I mean, and when you look at the contrast, because it's not, we know that it's not negligence. We know that it's not Proctor not knowing how to do his job properly. He is an efficient investigator, and we know this because all you have to do is read the warrant request in the Brian Walsh case. So you read that, and that thoroughly tells you that Proctor knows exactly what should go into an investigation and what protocol should be applied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Olivia Niles in a chat, by the way, Michael. She says,
"Oh yeah,
what a day!" And maybe it's because of some of these comments. Is he bleeding? They were talking plea deal at 4:30, but Jen wasn't arrested until 7:30. So they knew she was going to get arrested. And then Scottish Lass at 6:03 a.m. Nobody knew about the taillight until they had Karen's car in the Sally Port. So why did Jen say she had the taillight around him at 6:03 a.m. That morning? How did she know? So
and that was new info. And the way she threw it in at the very end just seemed so desperate and so weird. Very, very odd. And Will, to your point, the prosecution, of course, didn't even mention Proctor in their opening. So Proctor?
Yeah.
Who's this Proctor guy?
And it was great of Jackson to just not let them get away with that, and in his opening mention that. I love that he got to go second and go, you don't even hear the lead investigator's name in the prosecutor's opening statement.
And to anybody, that's weird. To anybody who if you know nothing about a case, that's weird.
Right. What a template to spring off of. You know what I mean? Like, it's great. So Jackson took control of that jury, I thought, from opening statements. At least got the jury's attention. You know what I mean? But it's still too early on to see which way the jury's going to go. But I just don't see, when it comes down to facts of the case, what it's going to boil down to is the overall perspective will be undeniably that the prosecution were trying to avoid facts and the defense were trying to push to getting to the facts. And that's, I think, if the jury is collectively a group of intelligent people, hopefully better than our friend Ronnie in the last trial, they're going to see this. They're going to see this overall big picture here. Why is the prosecution trying to avoid the facts, and why is the defense pushing so hard to get to the facts, and why is the prosecution why are the prosecution's key witnesses dancing around the truth instead of just answering a question during cross-examination? It makes no sense. Doesn't add up. So at the very least right there, you have doubt.
Yeah, and I was looking in the dictionary. I looked up evasive, and it was a picture of Jen McCabe. It was weird.
Actually, I
Wow.
looked up the
Yeah.
word nefarious because
Or nefarious. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to play it, but there was a great exchange about her calling her sister at 5:07 or 5:08, was it? And she said, and when he asked the question, "Did you do it?" All she said, "There's nothing nefarious about it." She didn't answer. She was anticipating what was coming, And then if I'm in the jury, I'm saying, "Huh?"
That's just a weird word to throw out. I mean, defensive much? Just weird. So I don't know if that's coming up or not.
I told him
Let's see
that
what we
I
have.
met him on January 29th when he came to my house.
So again, Trooper Tully wrote, you never met Trooper Proctor before September 2020.
And the fact that she keeps looking at the jury, she screams coached.
Oh, sure.
So again, that is sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, I instructed you on previous questions regarding the same type of thing, whether another witness is lying or not. Disregard the question and move on, Mr. Jackson.
If you had told Trooper Proctor, Trooper Tully, Lieutenant Tully, that you had never met Trooper Proctor before September of 2023, would that have been a truthful or an untruthful statement?
I object. I'd like to be seen.
Okay. Come to sidebar, please.
I like to be seen because apparently you're ruling against me.
I did point out that Alan Jackson did win most of these rulings, but why is he objecting? Why does he want the jury thinks that the prosecution's hiding facts? You're right. What Will said.
Never met Elizabeth Proctor or Michael Proctor prior to September 2023. End quote.
I had never met Elizabeth
That's not my
Proctor
question.
prior. Well, there was a,
Did you tell Trooper Tully, Lieutenant Tully, that quote?
if I can break that quote up because it's two thick parts.
No, you can't.
So
My
this has
question
been
is my
asked
question.
and answered. Move on, Mr. Jackson.
Do you deny?
Judge Beverly
as you
gets
sit
involved,
here
right?
Telling
Yes.
Lieutenant Tully
She hates
that
Jackson.
quote that
She
I just
hates
read.
him.
I
Do you
agree.
deny it?
Sustained. Move along. The question's been answered.
And she hates this cross, especially
Let's
how
talk
long
for a
it took.
second about your phone calls to John O'Keefe on January 29th, 2022. I'd like to go through those calls with you briefly, if I could.
Great.
Your Honor, this has previously been marked Exhibit 26.
Okay.
Mr. Brennan has a copy, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one of our. Let me whip this up. Or where did I? These things fly by so fast I can't see them sometimes. Remember we were talking about when we were showing the Paul O'Keefe repositioning, and I said, "Isn't that woman? She must be Jen McCabe's sister because she has the same
You
angular
indicated
look."
on direct examination.
She
and
is.
earlier on
That was Dee Dee.
cross-examination
Yeah.
That was Dee Dee. Yeah.
D nice.
that you had
D nice. Oh, Dennis. Denise. I have a sister, Denise. We just call her D. Not Dee Dee. Just D.
multiple phone calls to Mr. O'Keefe in the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Those phone calls ranged from about 12:14 a.m. until about 12:50 a.m., correct?
There was a call at 12:14 and then at 12:18.
I'm sorry, I'm bracketing it. The
Oh,
calls
I
were between.
apologize.
That's okay. 12:14 all the way to about 12:50, correct?
Are you saying 15?
50,
Oh,
50.
50. Oh, sorry, I apologize.
She heard him. She heard him
I apologize.
stalling.
Yes.
You called John O'Keefe at 12:14 and 31 seconds, lasting about 49 seconds, and that call was answered, correct?
Yes.
And you see that reflected in Exhibit 26, is that right?
Yes.
Going in reverse chronological order on this exhibit, you also see a call at 12:18 and 47 seconds, wherein John O'Keefe calls your phone lasting about 36 seconds. Is that right?
Yes.
You know that call was answered, even though it says it says unknown in the document, correct?
It does say unknown, yes.
That 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column over. That's where it says unknown.
Yes.
But it also indicates that call lasted 36 seconds, so you know it was answered.
I don't know from this record it was answered, but I know from my memory that I spoke to him a second time. Yes.
You also made a call, moving out to the page before this, starting at the bottom of the page. At 12:29 and 44 seconds, there was a call from you to John O'Keefe's phone lasting 7 seconds, correct?
That's what it says.
And the record indicates that it was an answered phone call, correct?
According to the record, it was answered, but I never spoke to him.
You deny speaking to John O'Keefe at 12:29 and 44 seconds.
Yes, I never spoke to him after 12:18.
Okay. Moving up, 12:41 and 10 seconds.
Let me ask about that first. Then I think I just reversed this here. What do you think was that 7-second phone call? And she says she didn't talk to him. That would have been after the one she says she did talk to him at 18 after. What do you think happened? Was it a butt dial? Did she really talk to him? And what was that 7 seconds about? Anyone?
I don't believe anything she's saying because she lies also about Nicole calling Nicole and talking to her. Now, this is a fact because I don't know if you guys know this, but when Karen jumped out of the car to go help John in a panic, she was trying to call John from her cell phone. When she saw John laying in the snow, she dropped her phone instinctively and just ran out of the car to him. Now, the phone stayed on. John's voicemail picked up, and it recorded Jennifer McCabe's 911 call.
Right.
At the end of the 911 call, you hear her say, "Are you coming out of the house or are you coming out to help?" One of those two things. It's pretty, but it's clear she says, "Are you coming out?" And it is at the exact time. Like if you look at the call logs of when she called 911 and then she calls Nicole Albert, right? 6:07 a.m. Or yeah, maybe. I mean, I may have the time confused, but she spoke the first time. The call shows up as answered, and it lasted 9 seconds. Then another call after that, immediately after that, the next minute. Yeah, 6:07 and 6:08. And then the 6:08 call lasted 7 seconds. And it also comes off as answered. Both her and Nicole Albert deny in the last trial speaking to each other in those calls. So, and I heard her say, we all heard it with our ears. You know what I mean? Like, so I know she's lying about talking to her sister. So when it comes to John's, I don't know enough about what happened to John to really responsibly speculate, but I'm of the opinion somebody had his phone and did something with it in a panic when, and I think it was in the heat of the murder actually taking place.
So you think somewhere during that scuffle, a call is made? Maybe it's one of the butt dials, but maybe nothing of substance. Important for timing, but not really of any substance of a conversation.
Well, after he's already theorized to be, deceased or at least incapacitated.
Well, that's the question, because this was at just 6:29, he said, or something like that.
Well, that's the Nicole, that's the calls to Nicole Albert. Now, what they're discussing right here are the calls to John O'Keefe,
right,
which happened supposedly what I think he said 12:31.
Well, yeah, and 12:18 is the one she last acknowledged as an actual conversation. After
right,
that,
and then 12:20 is the one where he answered, but she says I never spoke to him. Right. So, but the thing is that's when I'm thinking. I mean, but I don't know. Maybe he was talking to Karen in the car, because I assume at 12:20 he's still in the car. That's what I think.
Well,
But
when she says that all these are butt dials, 18 minutes of calls that are gone are butt dials. And they're not on her phone when it's extracted. So somebody, it had to be her, how to go in, and we all know how the iPhones work. If you make a call, you delete it, then it goes into the delete file, then you have to pick it up and delete it again. So it's 2 deletes to delete a call. And you can grab 7 of them all at once and delete it. And the only reason why they know these calls existed is because they came up in John O'Keefe's abstraction. So for some reason, she didn't want anyone to know that she was talking to him or calling him with those calls. That had to be deleted. Had to be, in my opinion, deleted. If I'm the jury,
I can pull up her call log right now. Like it, and it's everything I'm looking at right now is let's see. Dude, deleted. Like the calls start at 12:14 a.m. Right, to John O'Keefe. All of these are John O'Keefe, all the way up from 12:14 a.m. to 12:45. Actually, to
12:50, right?
To 12:50, all the way up, and every single one of them,
deleted.
except for 3 or 4 of them are deleted.
Yeah, and they only got him because it was on his phone.
That's how they got him. Touche, by the way, thank you, Touche. Says McCabe overplayed the script, repeated the fake "my dear friend" comments too much. If it was ever believable to the jury, it became less so every time.
Yeah. Especially at the end, which I think we'll get to, where she's so concerned about helping him. What can I do for my dear friend?
And I'm sorry,
to your left.
More specifically, the calls were all deleted, but the texts were not. But all of the calls were deleted.
Right. And it's different, Will, right? You know this. You can the text you can get back through the Cellbrite and through Axiom. The calls, once they're gone, they're generally go into and then they get overwritten pretty quickly. It's a different process to pull them back, but they're gone. They're gone off her phone, and she has no explanation for that. Do you know Plot Twist Pending? Because Plot Twist Pending loves you. Glare Raid. Thank you for the glare on. He is amazing. Glare Raid. Well, we have. It's interesting. Just let me backtrack, Welfare, because the reason we met you is Michael Bryant is made this week. He's going to make his 10th trip to Canton. On one of his second trips, I think he wandered over to, and he'll tell it, to the basement of the Hall of Records or something.
The registry, the registry of deeds.
Where you guys were meeting, and I guess when he looked in it, you probably looked at him like askance, like, who the hell are you, you interloper, right?
I'm not gonna lie. Like when he was down there talking to everybody, I did wonder, because I feel instinctively pretty protective of those boots on the ground people because they've embraced me so much. So I of course I was kind of side-eyeing, like, what's this dude's angle? But he was just letting Dina talk, and that
which is not difficult. That's not a difficult thing.
It's not. No. But Dina was saying Dina was saying such beautiful things, and you were just letting it happen. And I was like, this guy is really interested in hearing what the boots on the ground people are going through. So I
just threw it out there.
My first impression was great of you.
To everybody saying, hey, I'm not, you don't want to say anything, don't say anything. But I'd love to hear what you guys actually think. And then once Dina started, everybody else was kind of willing to chime in, including you, Will. And I said, "You're here from where? What?" I've since met people from many different states. I'm not sure I've met anybody from out of the country yet, but Chicago, Illinois, and Texas were 2 of the more recent ones that I met there. So, and this case is really resonating to the degree that people are like, "You want to go to Disneyland?" No, I'm going to go to Dedham. I think it'll be much more fun. I'm gonna go up there to Dedham and see what's happening. So,
I'm going back up there again at some point during this trial. I'm just not going to say when, but because I don't like to give the trolls a heads up. But I never say when I'm going. But this is going to be my 6th time going up there, and this time I'm bringing Annie Elise from 10 to Life with me. So we're gonna collab a bit, and it's gonna be really, really interesting. I got some good stuff coming up soon.
Cool.
So
cool. Okay, keep us posted. Okay, let me see where we are here.
When you make a call that's missed, it generally goes to voicemail, does it not?
It does, yes.
So then you have to do something additional with that call. Push the end button. Correct?
Correct.
Otherwise, voicemails just go on forever. And actually, they go on for 4 minutes.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know how long voicemails go for.
So if you had missed calls, 7 missed calls, that's at least 14
Nobody asked you that.
interactions. Double it, because you got to make the call, then you got to end the call. 14 interactions with your phone for a single missed call. I'm sorry, for 7 missed calls.
It could be, yes.
7 times 2,
And your testimony is you don't remember making a single one of those calls to John O'Keefe between 12:29 and 12:50. Correct?
I do not remember making those calls, no.
As you sit here, do you deny making those calls between 12:29 and 12:50 to John O'Keefe?
Oh, I'm not denying that, no.
So, what are you saying then?
Yeah, I mean, it begs the question. Well, what were the calls?
Right.
What were they?
Why can't you just answer a simple question? I mean, this is the most significant event of your life. You know what I mean? Like, it's fair to say it's one of the most significant events of your life. Like, you're gonna remember your so-called friend that of course, this is the first time we're hearing of it, that you helped perform CPR on, because that never came up until this trial. So I remember my brother performing CPR on my stepfather when we were younger. He was visiting home from college, and my stepfather was passing from cancer. We knew he was terminal and everything, but he did everything. He just wasn't waking up one morning, and he did everything to save him. And it was just watching my brother do it was traumatic for me almost, but it was extremely traumatic for him. So I'm not saying it should have been traumatic for Jen McCabe. I'm saying it's going to be a significant memory enough to where you're going to remember talking to him. You're going to, if you're trying to get justice for him, you're going to have, especially if you sat there and worked out a timeline, you made the effort to work out a timeline, but you can't remember these calls that you had with the person in question. Nobody believes you. Stop it.
No. 7 calls in a 20-minute period when you're looking for your friend. Yeah.
Right.
And Alan got her clearly that it couldn't be a butt dial, because she had to actually hit the phone 2 times for each interaction, which she was trying to say was some kind of pocket dial.
Yeah.
I think she got the word pocket dial from Mr. Wiffleball.
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. Wait, let's check. There's the rehomed. There's the rehomed Paul O'Keefe.
Jesus.
We've been rehomed from this area over to this area right there.
Desgraciado. Dude, the events that took place, I don't know what happened, but if I had to guess, because there is a history of Paul O'Keefe being somewhat
demonstrative.
I don't want to say aggressive, that's strong, but making comments and dirty looks towards Karen Reed, and if I had to guess, after what happened, they went into a recess, then everyone was asked to go outside except the attorneys and the family. The families. Right. And then Paul O'Keefe is seen by Jess Machado going into Michael Morrissey's office. And then they come back, and Paul O'Keefe has to sit in the back in the corner with a dunce cap on. So I'm guessing, I'd say, based on all that information, I'd say it's fair to guess that there was something going on where he was distracting the defense in some way, and they said something to Kenney about it.
Yeah, I believe, and I was there with Jess, and we were in relatively similar areas, and I think it was prompted perhaps by a juror, though.
Okay.
I think the result was, let's get we'll look at all the family members, but there was a target, and I'm pretty sure it was Paul, based on his being rehomed. But I think the court felt it better to just look at the families collectively and chat with them. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if it matters. He's still right there. I mean, it's not like he's missing.
Madeira Beach caregiver asks, why is Jennifer McCabe indicating that the FBI investigation completed in great part to her help? I mean, she was trying to say she cooperated with them, right? And gave 2 more interviews, Madeira Beach caregiver, because every time Alan Jackson got her, she tried to wiggle out either with help from the judge or by giving these additional facts that no one's ever heard of before. And Kimberly at 15 question, will they arrest Jen for all her lying, especially to the FBI?
No.
Well, we all 3 agree, right? No.
Only if they bring the case back up and they need to like turn the screws on her to get a conviction on somebody else who's more. That's what I mean, I'm just speculating loosely, but
yeah, it's just a tough standalone. They usually throw that kind of action. They've got 3 or 4 other more legitimate charges. It's just
bigger fish to fry, as it were.
Yeah. And Trevor Fagan confirms that apparently a juror pointed out that Paul was grilling Karen Reed. Thank you, Trevor, for that information.
Because I mean, she would always walk right by him, like within a foot and a half of him. He's right up against that rail. She has to go right by there on their way up to the sidebars where she, because she has to, because she doesn't have the headphones set up. So we'll see. We'll see if that makes a difference.
That's interesting. You guys tell me, as attorneys, as experienced attorneys, you tell me, because I made an observation today that I'm just not sure if it's very accurate as a layman. I've watched a lot of trials. I've never seen a defendant who goes up on the sidebars with the attorneys in their own trial before. So
I'm a big one. I'm a big one for that. I've been saying that for years. That my defendant, but the problem is sometimes my defendants are in chains. Like Aaron Hernandez couldn't come. You can't bring somebody in jail or up to the sidebar, because then you're going to go with all the officers, and that doesn't look
fair
good.
enough.
But I've been saying that for years that in every trial, whether it's civil or criminal, that the person whose trial it is has a constitutional right to be at the sidebar, because many decisions get made as a result of what happens at the sidebar, especially in this case where she is demanding the judge that, you can't put anything on the record. You can't even say objection, hearsay. So I think it's a good move. I think it's a great move. And she also has to make her rulings so that everyone can hear them. She can't say, well, come on, counsel, come on, you know how it works, things like that. So I'm sure she's not happy about that. Sui Generous said, Linda Michael, Will, you are loved. She is the biggest proven liar I've ever seen on the stand in over 100 trials, even with the judge helping.
Really? Yeah, I would always have my client come up too for a number of reasons. One of them was selfish. I don't want any sort of Sixth Amendment claim, that I wasn't properly representing the client. You heard it all. Here it is. And you get to weigh in as you should. So, yeah, not unusual. I think in this case, it just seems a little different because there's so many bodies up there, there's so many sidebars. So it's quite the parade. I'm not sure I would have wanted the audio hookup that the defense asked for. I actually kind of like that she's up there.
I agree.
And you can't intercept anything. And what are you gonna have, some Wi-Fi? There'll be some techie somewhere that's intercepting the signal. So I think it's better to have it right up there.
I just took it as a testament to how involved she is in her case, in her own case.
And they should be. What I mean, a client, defendant, criminal, civil, they better be invested in the case. If you have a who cares attitude, that's going to translate to the jury.
Yeah, because if she gets convicted, all the lawyers are going. I thought they said, "Lawyers are all going home. We're just going to go home and go into Disney World, or whatever." But the client's going to jail, so the client better help make the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, no. Go ahead.
I was just where we are here.
Your Honor, Ms. McCabe, may I approach?
Yes.
She's so pained when she gives him permission to approach.
Yeah. I forgot what document we're looking at now. Let's see if I can.
That was done in the morning at the request of Miss Reed.
McCabe,
Ah.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you a yes or no.
Let me back up here just a touch because I think this is interesting.
I asked you a
indicated
yes
wanted
or
to
no
see a record,
question.
Ms. McCabe.
Okay.
May I approach?
Yes.
You indicated you wanted to see a record, Ms. McCabe. Did you see a record that indicated a Google search? Not what the contents of the Google search is, but there was a Google search.
I just saw a Celebrite record, yes.
And did you see the time of the Google search?
On that record, yes.
Is it 2:27 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Ultimately, you will agree that there was a Google search done, and now I'm going to ask about the content of Hoslong to Die in Cold, correct?
That was done in the morning at the request of Miss Reed.
Ms. McCabe, I didn't ask you that. I asked you a yes or no question. Did you understand my question?
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Did that record indicate that there was a search at some point done, at some point, for Hoslong to Die in Cold?
I object to her reading the record.
You
Was there a
object to her
search?
reading the record?
On
Yeah.
that
Yes, we
at some
objected
point.
to.
On that paper, was there a search that said that? Is that the question?
Let's start with that.
Yes. Yeah, there was.
Okay, now let me ask you a different question. You Google searched the phrase Hoslong to Die in Cold. Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
On January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Somebody just gifted
So
20
you agree
memberships
that
in
you
your
were
chat.
on Google, correct?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
You agree that there
Thank
was
you,
a
Madeira
search
Beach
done
Cafe.
at 2:27 a.m., correct?
So nice.
I don't recall doing a search at 2:27. The paper says it. I don't.
Okay, and you also agree that at some point that morning, you plugged into that phone Hoslong to Die in Cold, is that right?
Yes, after we found John O'Keefe.
Now, you claim that that was at 6:23 and at 6:24 in the morning, two iterations of How Long to Die in the Cold. Hoslong to Die in Cold, How Long TI Die in CIKD, correct?
I'm not claiming it. It's the truth. It's what happened.
You're testifying to that.
Yes, I am.
You also testified that at the time you Google searched those phrases, it was Karen Reed screaming and yelling at you, shaking you to Google hypothermia, correct?
She was pulling on my sleeve.
Is that
Yes.
yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You have discussed this Google search and the issue of the hypothermia with Carrie Roberts, correct?
I told her in the days following.
You discussed it? or no?
Yes.
You discussed it in the days following January 29th, correct?
Yes.
You discussed it before her testimony at the grand jury, correct?
We discussed it after. We don't talk about what we're going to say before testifying or anything like
in
that.
the 3 months between this incident and the testimony by both you and Ms. Roberts, you two did not discuss this hypothermia issue?
It wasn't an issue. It was just something she said, but we don't discuss it every day. There's no need to.
I didn't ask you if you discussed it every day. I asked you if you ever discussed it.
Originally, yes, we did discuss it in the first days following all of
And
this.
that would have been before either one of you testified at the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
And we know that you were with her during her, just before her testimony at the grand jury. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're certainly aware that at the grand jury, that in prior testimony, Carrie Roberts corroborated your statement that Karen Reed demanded to Google hypothermia.
Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Are you aware that Carrie Roberts, well, let me ask it a different way. Have you and Carrie Roberts ever discussed the fact that she corroborated your statement that Karen Reed demanded that you Google hypothermia?
No.
She never told you that.
No.
Did you ever ask her that?
No.
Did you discuss your statement that Karen Reed was the one that demanded that search?
Karen Reed did ask me to do the search, yes.
Okay, that's not what I asked you. Did you and Carrie Roberts discuss that?
Yes, we've talked about that.
Are you aware that last week Carrie Roberts denied hearing that statement.
Sustained.
Have you been told, have you been updated that last week Kerry Roberts denied ever having heard that statement?
Sustained.
May we approach?
Yeah, you better talk about that. I still think
Ridiculous.
there's a huge missed opportunity here, I think, because I want to know how a demand by Kerry Reed to search hypothermia, I know Linda's sick of me saying this, how that demand to search hypothermia becomes how long to die in the cold. How does that translate? Why can't you ask her that? You heard her demand you search hypothermia. Why did you search how long to die in the cold? I want to know.
I mean, well, maybe he just knows that she's gonna just give the simplest lie answer, which is, it was the quickest thing for me to type. I didn't know how to spell
it's just so.
hypothermia. And so that's
and I would
have.
I'd be okay with that, I guess.
You know what I mean?
But it makes no sense that in her brain that's the translation of search hypothermia, assuming that's true, that she was told to search hypothermia. Okay, how about how long to live in the cold? Okay, no, I'm going to do how long to die. You know?
Right. I mean, that's I see where you're going with that, because like it puts her in a position, it puts her in a light to the jury as to like why that choice of words.
Yeah, she wants to know,
like,
is he dead, or how long will it be before he's dead? Not, is this good friend of mine going to survive?
Right. One side of the coin is looking at it in terms of survival. The other side of the coin is looking at it in terms of how long is it going to take for this dude to die already?
Yeah,
you know
it just looks, right. Linda, it looks nefarious to me.
It looks nefarious, but what also looks nefarious is Judge Kenney not allowing Alan Jackson to. She has a perfect right to know whether or not she has learned in preparation for her testimony that her good friend Kerry Roberts admitted for the first time in front of the public, it wasn't brought to the attention by the prosecutor, that indeed she never heard Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to Google hypothermia or Haas-Long hypothermia. Never heard of that. Absolutely never heard of it. And I don't understand what the problem is if you're seeking the truth, why the jury can't know that. Because they heard her say it last week that she lied, and that the first time she told anybody was to, another law enforcement agency.
So just one question on this. One question on this, please, Mr. Judge.
Have you become aware from any source that last week Kerry Roberts denied having heard the statement that was attributable to my client?
No.
Did you hear that?
No.
So he got it in.
Yeah. Do you think she's lying or not? I think she's lying. I think she does know.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding? Is that supposed to be funny?
And I'll bet you that conversation didn't go well either.
6:23 a.m., 6:24 a.m. Only one of them was recorded as deleted, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
I mean, the fascinating thing is I could,
with having deleted.
I could picture Brennan coaching her, like when you look at when you compare this testimony to the last trial, okay, I could hear Brennan coaching her. I can hear Brennan going, okay, you were combative last time. That can't happen again. You want the only thing that matters is how the jury perceives you while you're on that stand. That's the only thing that matters. So what you're going to do is you're going to be apologetic. You're going to be you're going to seem like you're forthcoming, but you're going to answer questions with, if the document says that, but I don't have a memory of it. You're going to give vague answers that sound solid. She's not going to do that on her own. Those lies stink of Brennan. You know what I mean? When you look at the lies Brennan was telling and the way that he told lies in the pretrial motions, in the pretrial hearings, it's this lying Jen McCabe is a different lying Jen McCabe than the first trial.
You're absolutely right.
And I think it just stinks of Brennan coaching. I mean, looking at the jury when she does it, this is, I mean, she was groomed.
She leans into the microphone. Very sincere.
And also, if you can get in those digs, those extra facts, you get them in whenever you can. I mean, you know.
Yeah, those are the
She's not doing
embellishments.
that. Yeah, the embellishments aren't coming on her own without somebody telling her.
Yeah, he's telling her the jury needs to see you as the soccer mom who's innocent and misses her friend and did everything she could to try to help. That's how the jury needs to see you.
Yep.
But
Except
you have
knock on
to,
the door.
right. Right. But you know, when Jackson corners you with a question, you just say, I don't have a memory of that. If that's what the paper says, that's what the paper says.
And no paper you ever show me is going to refresh my recollection. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing you ever show me.
Exactly.
She's been told that's the way out of that.
That's it. Yeah, that is the stone wall she puts up for Jackson, which just infuriated him Wednesday.
Right.
You know?
Right. So he decided not to do that today. He's going to say, I'm telling you what it says.
Yeah.
We're not playing this. Like at even one point today, he even goes,
we can do this
all day.
Yeah.
We can do this all day, Miss McCabe.
Yeah.
Like he's like, this isn't going to happen again to me today.
I was surprised that Judge C didn't squash him when he said something like that, because technically, you know, it's probably a little improper, but understandable. Look at Madeira Beach caregiver. Do you have any insight on this, Will? Higgins no longer friendly with the crew?
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. All I know is Higgins called JFK's show that one day. That was really funny.
Oh, really?
Really? What did he say? Yeah.
Oh, you don't know about that?
No.
Oh my God. Oh God, it's so funny. Yeah, like if you go to the JFK's channel, like it's clear. Actually, the best thing to do is go to Microdots, because Microdots immediately did a comparison of the voices, compared his testimony to his
there was a match. It was a match.
Clearly. Yeah. I mean, some things are a little not as discernible, but other things were just like like in the same musical key. Like he played them at the same time. It was crazy. Certain words, certain terms that he uses. And so that's why you'll see jokes like in the chat, they'll like, you wrong, because he tried to like disguise his voice and make himself sound hip, but he sounded like a cop.
So how did that go? He doesn't say he's who he is. So what was the deal?
He called in and he's like, yeah, so these guys, I don't know why you're going after these guys. They're decorated dudes. And he referred to themselves as to him and Bryant Albert as decorated dudes, but he tried to say that he was like, and then he's talking and JFK goes, he recognizes his voice, because I mean he's gone over the testimony so many times. So he's like, yo, is this Higgins? And then he's like, oh, and he like kind of trips over it, and then he's just like, you wrong. So he panics, and like, yeah, it's so obvious. It's really crazy. So it's clear that the guy's drinking with his, Jameson and ginger or whatever it is that he drinks. And he calls in, he's listening to people talk about him on the internet, and then he called in.
No, come on on, Mr. Higgins. Come on on.
I highly recommend you watch that, because it is highly entertaining.
I'll have to grab that. Yeah.
Yes.
Michel Roy became a YouTube member just at the right time, because this case, woo.
That's for sure.
Like, even if it's not him, which I truly believe it was, even if it's not him, it was really funny.
You do want to believe it's him, that's for sure.
Right. It's highly entertaining.
Well, we invite him on our show. He can clear it all up, and we'll invite him to a show together. We'll invite him on our show.
Good thinking. Good thinking. We'll do a joint cast and have him on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll wait for the phone.
In that clip with law enforcement, between and among you and Carrie Roberts and Miss Reed.
I was.
So here he's talking, just to refresh, I didn't want to go through all that video that we've seen and so bazillions of times, but the point being made was that she seemed to be orchestrating whatever was happening at the scene, like with her hands flying around, and she's the one so broken up, it's her friend, and she was pretty calm and cool. I mean, from the 911 call to her being at the scene, directing the cops, telling them what happened. It didn't seem to square with somebody who is now shocked and doing the best she can for her good friend.
No,
Mr. O'Keefe was placed on the gurney in a prior clip and moved past you, correct?
Yes.
Did you notice what your reaction was when that gurney passed you?
I didn't know.
Did you see that you turned your back completely to Mr. O'Keefe as he passed by?
If that happened, it wasn't on purpose.
It wasn't nefarious. Interesting
McCabe,
point, though.
When you got to the scene, we can take that down. When you got to the scene at 6:03 in the morning, you immediately recognized, did you not, that this was an emergency situation? High-intensity emergency situation, correct?
I knew it was an emergency situation, yes.
As a matter of fact, a man's life was in grave danger. You knew that.
Yes, I did.
And this is someone that was a friend of yours, correct?
When he says grave danger, I always think of A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
Grave
there any
danger?
other
Is there
kind?
another kind? Yeah. So this is an important setup for the
Right.
for the gotcha moment. So I'm not gonna interrupt here. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
He was a
Right.
dear
Except to
friend.
thank the
Not
Goodmans
just a
for the
friend,
justice
but a
for
police
team
officer who was laying, as far as you knew, dying in the snow. Is that right?
Yes.
You knew that you needed to get immediate medical attention, emergency medical attention to him as quickly as you possibly could. Is that right?
Yes.
You knew that minutes counted, right?
Yes.
You knew that seconds counted, correct?
Correct.
This man was grasping, as far as you knew, grasping and clinging to life at that moment. Is that right?
Yes.
That's why you called 911, to get emergency personnel who are trained in CPR and life-saving measures to the scene, to the gentleman, to Mr. O'Keefe, as quickly as you possibly could, correct?
Yes.
You called 911 at about 6:03 and 35 seconds. Is that right? I don't expect you to know down to the second, but it was about a couple of minutes after 6.
Right after, yeah, we found him, yes.
And you're aware from the dash cam that Officer Seraph got there about 6:10, almost on the nose, right?
I didn't pay attention to the time.
You'll agree with me that there was about 6.5 minutes or so between the time you called 911 and the time Officer Seraph got there. Is that right?
If that's what the dash cam says, yes.
On that 911 call, you referred to John O'Keefe as a man passed out in the snow.
Yes.
You didn't say, "This is my friend."
I needed to get, like you said, emergency there. So
Did
I
you
wasn't
say,
going
"This
to
is
give
my
a I wasn't going to give a description and say my friend is in the snow. I was going to give them the information that I thought was the most important at the time.
Did
And
you say his name?
I just said a man because that was the most important identifying.
You didn't say John.
Eventually in the 911, I do say his name.
You didn't initially say O'Keefe, correct?
No, none of that matters. It was a man in the snow, and I
you
wanted
didn't say,
help there.
And you didn't say he's a Boston police officer or an off-duty police officer.
Again, a man needed help.
Yes or no? Did you
No,
say that?
I didn't.
Do you think that might, yes or no, do you think that might have sped things up if they knew, if the 911 operator knew that this was a fallen officer, a fellow officer?
I think 911 comes to everyone equally. I don't think they would have.
Do you think that might have been something important to relay to the 911 officials?
I don't know.
You were even asked by the 911 operator, does anybody know CPR? And your answer was no, correct?
I'd have to listen to it to remember my exact answers.
But it was basically in the negative. No, we're not professionals. We're just out here doing the best we can, correct?
I wouldn't say that, no.
You didn't believe Karen Reed knew CPR?
I didn't know. I don't think I answered that question. I don't think it
You
was
didn't-
asked.
You didn't know if Carrie Roberts knew CPR, correct?
I didn't know if they knew CPR, correct?
And none of you were paramedics?
No,
None of you are first responders?
no,
None of you are trained in emergency life-saving techniques in any way, correct?
correct.
I have a question, Ms. McCabe. On all of Fairview, the entire road between Chapman and Cedar Crest,
I love this.
can you think of any person on that road who might have had life-saving techniques trained into them? First responder, someone who knew how to deal with someone in distress, someone with high skill level training. Do you think of anyone on Fairview who had that kind of training?
Can I now or did I then? Which are you asking?
Did you then?
No, then my focus was on John O'Keefe.
Okay, let me narrow the focus. How about on the property? How about at 34 Fairview? Could you think of anyone that was a first responder who would have life-saving training, life-saving technique training under his belt?
Yes, my brother-in-law, Bryant Albert.
And you didn't go in the house, did you?
No, I did not.
When you arrived at the scene, you didn't go in? Not until much later, correct?
Our focus was John.
You knew that Brian Albert was inside the house. You'd just been with him hours earlier, correct?
Yes.
You knew that his window was 30 feet away. You were staring at it. You could look at it if you wanted to, correct?
It's off to an angle.
And you didn't go in the house then either.
I did not know.
You knew that John O'Keefe was clinging to life during those precious minutes and seconds. Is that right?
I did, yes.
And you also knew that Brian Albert, your brother-in-law, was a first responder trained to deal with people in that kind of distress, correct?
In that moment, my only thoughts were John and everything we could do for John.
And you knew that there were warm blankets inside the house. Is that right?
I did, yes. There were warm blankets in the house.
And you
Those
still
weren't-
never went in, did you?
No, I went and attended to John because once I finished calling 911, I went over to John and Kerry Roberts asked me to take over compressions. So I felt like that was more important and 911 was on the way. I never thought about going in the house. I just thought, how can I help John?
You never thought about going in the house, but you did pull out your cell phone and make 2 phone calls, didn't you?
Great.
After I called 911, I tried calling my sister, yes.
While John was out in the cold, clinging to life, you weren't doing chest compressions at 6:07 and 6:08, were you?
I was walking over when I was calling.
You were calling your sister on the phone, weren't you?
Yep.
I was calling them to see if they would come out, but I was going right over to work on him.
And you could have walked the 25 feet
Lies.
to the front door, walked in the house, and screamed for Brian Albert to come out and help you in those precious seconds and minutes, couldn't you?
That would have taken me away from helping John, getting Kerry blankets, giving him compressions.
And making those 2 very important phone calls at 6:07 and 6:08 that you say were not answered, correct?
They were not important phone calls. I tried to call my sister, and then I focused on John.
They were not important phone calls, but they were important enough for you to make while John is clinging to life right there in front of you, right?
As I was walking over, I called to see if she would answer.
And she didn't answer. Let's talk about that. She didn't
No.
answer according to you.
She
So if we're
answered.
going to talk about it, we're beyond the luncheon break?
Your Honor, I have 2 more questions,
Okay,
and I'll wrap it.
okay.
Let's talk about that real quick.
Sure.
She didn't answer the phone, did she?
No, she didn't.
So you have a situation where a man is laying dead or dying in the front yard of your sister's house. You see nothing in terms of life inside the house. Lights aren't coming on. They're not getting up. They're certainly not coming outside, right?
They were sound asleep
They weren't coming outside, were they?
because they were asleep.
You didn't know if they were asleep. All you knew was there was a severely injured man on the front lawn of their house, and your sister didn't answer the phone, not once, but twice, correct?
Correct, she didn't answer the phone.
Did you think your sister might have been in peril? Did you think to go inside the house and check that they're okay?
I had no reason to think that they weren't okay.
You had no reason to believe they weren't okay. A man was dead or dying on their lawn, and your sister's not answering the phone. And nobody is coming out to the chaos of Karen Reed screaming on the front lawn. You didn't think there was some reason to believe they could have been in peril?
I didn't because your
There
client
it
was
is.
screaming she hit him. She had a cracked taillight. She was crying she hit him. I didn't, but my focus... Can I finish, please?
You had solved the crime right then and there. You solved the whole case.
No, I didn't. I knew John never came in the house, so I had no concern for anyone's safety inside the house.
The reason you didn't go inside the house is because you knew better. You knew better. You knew she wasn't in peril. You knew that Brian Albert wasn't in peril. You weren't worried at all about them, were you?
I was not worried at all because something happened on the front lawn that had nothing to do with anything inside that
How
house.
do you know
You
that?
weren't worried about them at all because you knew what really happened.
At that moment, I didn't know that he was hit by a vehicle and there was taillight found next to him.
Whoa!
All right, jurors, luncheon break.
Whoop!
You
So-
gotta give that last.
So wait,
that
did
last-
she just say that that there was taillight next to
Yes,
it? She knew that
yes,
then?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
No
Well, I
taillight
mean,
had been found yet.
No. So
Right.
now
Wow.
she was trying to oversell, and she threw
Yeah.
that little nugget in there at the end, and that's what I wish there had been some follow up. To say, whoa, what do you mean you found some taillight? I mean,
Yeah.
Judge C did her best to totally derail
She totally did that. That
She
seems
saw
very
where it was
deliberate,
going, and
didn't
she's like, hey, we're way past our lunch break. And he
The
said,
timing
"Fuck you,
seemed a little
sit
too
down. We're
convenient.
gonna finish this." And
Right.
and he did. But I know in any other time frame, that little nugget about those, the taillight pieces, he would have gone after her on that. I know he would have.
Yeah, and you're not gonna hear the end of that because it hasn't been found out. So when we get to, because it hasn't been found, but how did she know there was a taillight next to it? It's ridiculous. Becky Ironhead has a question to, I guess, all of us really. What's the chance the federal investigation is truly over? Will, what do you think?
Which one?
Which one?
Which one?
Yeah. Well, as somebody mentioned in the chat, I do have it on good authority that they're not lying about the federal investigation supposedly being at least suspended. Like federal investigations are never closed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They're dissolved or they're open. So you mean as it relates to this investigation, this case? Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking of a couple of other federal investigations that might be in the offing relating to the prosecution of the case. So
right, yeah. I mean, I'm of the hope. I don't want to say of the belief yet, but at least I'm hoping. Like the best case scenario for me, in the comforting thought for me is that they're now just collecting the information, waiting to see how this trial turns out, because they want to just sweep a bunch of charges and a lot of indictments.
We know they're watching.
We know,
right?
We know they're watching because Dr. Wolf from BACA said that they were watching, and I think that's why Judge Kenney let them in with no restrictions, because once she heard that, it was like, oh, the feds are still watching. I
have a heart attack. Like the day that the U.S. attorney stands there making a press conference going, we just handed out indictments to the following people: Jennifer McCabe, Bryant Albert, Beverly Kenney, Hank Brennan. Like I'm going to be like, oh. But that's a wet dream and a half right there. Who knows if that's ever going to happen.
So who's up next?
That's what I was going to say. As frustrating as it's been, because they're playing that pretty close to the vest. What are your thoughts? They dropped in the blood alcohol woman tech.
Yeah.
And then where are we going?
If I'm being honest, man, when that lady came on, I was so tired because it was, you know what I mean? It was towards the end, and me and my chat, we were just making fart jokes the whole time. We didn't care what she was talking about. We get it. She was drunk. We know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where is this going? So that's
they
how
have this range of
the range was
drunk,
pretty broad.
She's really drunk. They don't know whether she even had it.
But interesting,
and it's not two tests, which is a real problem for them, by the way.
Yeah, which is going to be attacked. But as I was saying, now they've established the prima facie element for that second charge of driving under the influence, in this case, leading to the manslaughter. But you notice even the low end of the range is almost 2 times the legal limit. And that's all they need for the presumption that she was under the influence. And that gets it in, and then, check that off their box of the cookbook that you need for manslaughter and being under the influence. So she, her role was boring, but important.
It won't matter if Arca convinces the jury that she didn't hit him with
of course.
Like it's funny when you mentioned the blood and you mentioned the testing. What it reminded me of was the last trial when they talked about the shirt and the DNA on the shirt. We didn't find any dog DNA on the shirt. Well, you didn't test the shirt, did you? You tested a swab that the MSP sent to the lab. Right. You didn't actually test the shirt. You just tested a Q-tip. Who knows what that Q-tip touched? You know what I mean? When you consider all of the poor habits of chain of custody in this case already, that's why in the world would I believe for a second that shirt was actually tested?
And it's in the snow. Getting wet. So
and it was sitting. We saw pictures of it laying on the hospital floor, wet. Yeah. And then we heard testimony that it sat on a piece of paper, first in his trunk of his car for 3 weeks. It wasn't logged into evidence, by the way, 3 weeks. So then it's
I
in
didn't
his
realize
car
that. I didn't realize it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks before
Oh,
it was
wow.
logged into evidence.
Yeah.
From the
Chain of
time that
custody,
picture was
perfect.
taken, yeah, from the time it was taken, a picture was taken on the hospital floor to the time that it was logged into evidence was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it was in his trunk of his car. I mean, he testified to it that it was in the trunk of his car, that it was on like a piece of paper drying out.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, as long as that wasn't the lead investigator that did that, then
It was.
Then
It was.
I know.
Karina, by the way,
Yeah.
became a YouTube member. Welcome, Karina. And this is an interesting question. Josh H., just on what we're talking about, says, if I, thank you for the donation, if I were a sole charge in this case, if the sole charge in this case were DUI, if I were a jury, I'd find her guilty, okay? But if it's a murder case, my thought pattern is totally different. Yeah, because you have to prove a collision.
Yeah. And you have to prove, for the murder, you got to prove intent beyond just a collision. She has to intend to run into him for second-degree murder. For the manslaughter, it could be just the gross negligence. She was drunk and she bumped into him. But otherwise, she could be driving under the influence, right? But that means nothing unless you connect the vehicle to him.
With every single cop in Canton, apparently, drives under the influence.
Yeah, I think it's a prerequisite.
If you charge her with drunk driving, you got to charge everybody who was at that party with drunk driving.
Yeah. Hey, and it's. And remember from the audit in the clown hall meeting, the guys running it who put it together, they're like driving under the influence. Come on, cops are going to lunch having a drink in uniform. They're having a drink at the end of the day in uniform. It's not a big deal. This is what they're telling the town.
Dude, the clerk in the courtroom has a DUI, bro. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
wow.
Jimmy.
One of those guys. Turtle Boy did a story on it. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Everything that's wrong with this.
I'm surprised.
There's way more wrong with this case than there is right.
I'm surprised that he had it stick. I mean, in his position, somebody should have fixed that. Come on.
Right.
So, Will, I have another question. Do you think, though, that Brennan's going to try to change, what they did in the first trial? Because at the jury view, he told them to look at the spoiler in the top. Do you think he's going to try to say somehow he kind of turned around to avoid the car, got hit by the spoiler just in the back of his head, no place else, and then fell and somehow, damaged his arm on the car as he fell?
I mean, I've heard at least 3 different theories so far coming from the prosecution or somebody who testifies for the prosecution. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Here's the thing. It's the dog bite. I'm just totally convinced of it. The simple controversy around the dog alone makes me convinced that those are dog bites on John O'Keefe. Like, just the facts around the dog, like the fact that the dog was aggressive, the fact that the dog, they got rid of the dog, the fact that the dog wasn't in the room when Jen McCabe went in the room to wake them up. Brian and Nicole Albert testified in the last trial that the dog stays in the room with them. The fact that the dog didn't bark, nothing, right? So all of these circumstances surrounding the dog, everybody's trying to avoid the dog issue, right? So
the dog is the issue. That's the issue.
That alone is enough to convince me that those are dog bites on John O'Keefe's arm. Yeah.
Who gets rid of who? My Tubi. There's no way I'm getting rid of my Tubi after 7 years. But Tubi is a family member. No, absolutely no way. And we saw that dog really put 2 people in the hospital, right? I mean, this is not a friendly dog. This is not somebody go go kiss.
There's some trained, watchdog type traits with that particular breed. Right. I don't have a real problem with any of the other injuries. It's just the arm injuries, because I could come up with reasons that he got, the big laceration on the back of his head. It doesn't bother me as much as it does others, that most of the injuries are from the neck up. There's a little tweak to the leg. Because I could envision either him losing his footing, either because he's drunk or because it's icy, and he falls forward or leans forward, and then he hits his head on the car, or, all of those things could happen, but not the raggedness of his arm injuries. I can't think of what would cause that. If
where's your
taillight gnawing on him?
Where's your taillight? Well, you're gonna love this.
Here's the only way. This is the only way this taillight causes those injuries.
Right.
That's how
That's
this
it.
taillight causes those injuries. Domino does not like that.
There's no way. I mean, they go all up and down his
No.
arm, and then there's a circular pattern around his elbow. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, there's no way that he broke the taillight with his elbow. First of all, that's just without breaking a bone or even bruising. That's not going to happen. That plastic is way too hard.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. And the theory, Trooper Paul's theory anyway, is that somehow the piece of taillight scratched him up. So I guess the taillights went flying and attacked him as he's going through the air, 10 feet, spinning, hits his head on frozen grass.
Yep.
Cushioned by snow, but it gives him an arachnoid fracture is what they called it, or something.
Like a spider, yeah.
Right, yeah, like a spider web, I guess, is more or less, or spider, yeah, like and that's gonna happen. Nobody. That's the thing, is the only reason you question it is because you have this entire local government trying to sell it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anybody with common sense immediately goes, no way. There's no way that happens.
Carla Reed became a YouTube member. Thank you very much. Josh H has another question of you, Michael, to the lawyers in the room. Do you think if a case ends in a mistrial and the prosecution changes the theory of the case, they should need a new indictment? There's case law on that the prosecutors can change the theory of the case. I think it's outrageous. I think if you go to a grand jury with one theory and then all of a sudden you change your theory of the case, or even better, you find out that a witness lied to the grand jury. Okay.
Ooh,
I think you have an ethical duty to dismiss that indictment and you bring that forward.
Because the indictment was brought up under different circumstances. So at the very least, even if you can't if you can do it, you would, the other option would be to re-indict, right? You know, but I don't know if you can or not. You guys are lawyers. I'm not. I don't know if you can, but there's no logical explanation as to why you can move something forward when everything is different than the indictment now.
Yeah. And I don't know why Judge Kenney is not worried about the fact that you have one witness who clearly lied to a grand jury and then had to tell the FBI.
She did not understand the question.
Oh, yeah, right, sure. And then you have another witness who said she was somebody else and then went in and lied to the FBI and all. And she has no concerns of the prosecution case when those are their witnesses. And that's what really pisses me off. And that's what's turned me really around on this case.
Yeah. I think the smart thing to do, if heaven forbid there's another mistrial, is just whack the top charge off and just press ahead with manslaughter with the DUI. I mean, at least it's an arguable case.
I have to point out that it's really also very interesting that those text messages today, because this is new, didn't happen in the last trial, that text messages today indicated that they were talking about her taking a plea. And this was hours before Karen Reed was even arrested.
Right.
That was in my top three. That was my top three.
Right.
Yeah. 3 hours, and they're talking about if she pleads out, then
otherwise it's an episode.
Or rather, it's an episode. Please, how did come
they
on.
were counting on her pleading out, so it's clear what they were doing is it's clear that there was some sort of conspiracy here to convince her that she hit John.
And we didn't hear those messages in the first trial. That's the first time it all went like, wait, whoa, what?
Right.
Yeah, when I heard that I said that is so damning that it makes this conspiracy theory, which, remember, doesn't have to be proven. Defense doesn't have to prove any of that. And so it's one more nugget that makes it sound like these guys had this so locked in so early, and then they didn't realize what they were getting into. They didn't realize that she wasn't the patsy they hoped she was going to be, and she was going to fight about it. So
they did not see Karen Reed coming. Yeah, they did not. They underestimated the hell out of her.
Well, I think they underestimated the hell out of the community, because in the Sandra Birchmore case, which, as you know, my husband was the one who who brought that to the forefront of the civil lawyers, right? And said that was a homicide, that it was not a suicide, and that the community, that this case is a vehicle for this community. This is pissed off. They're really pissed off. And by the way, thank you, Madeira Beach caregiver.
And the rest of the country is getting pissed off. The rest of the world is getting pissed off. I got people from Ireland in my chat talking about people in, like somebody from Ireland was like, I live in Ireland, and everybody in Ireland is getting pissed off about it.
Right. Well, because wow. Guy on YouTube bought a medical grade fake arm
I
and
saw that.
Taillight and did car tests many times.
I saw that. Yeah.
Have you seen
they
that?
Took my hammer to the taillight to the third degree there. Yeah, with the arm, which is creepy.
Yeah, but and so everyone's pissed off, and that's what's great. You know, we started this case. We told you that we were just on law and crime, and we're like, oh my, what is this stupid case that these people are using a snowblower as, you know, I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing in solo cups, you know, given to them by the police chief across the street. And that's a blah, blah, blah. But then as we got into we decided to do our own channel and start covering this, it was like, holy.
Right. The solo cups and the leaf blower is a drop. They're drops in the bucket of what's wrong with
it.
Yeah.
That was what got us interested. But that was like, we've forgotten the red solo cup and the leaf blowers. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're putting together this thing, me and Annie, and we're going to educate. It's in its conceptual phases right now, but we all pretty much agreed to it. We just haven't set a time yet. But we're supposed to collaborate. I used to do this thing where I explained to non-true crime creators who I'm cool with about this case. I did this with this channel called Hannibal and Monty. These guys named Hannibal and Monty. And they were really successful streams because they didn't know anything. They don't follow true crime. And they were like, have us on your show. So, and then explain a case. So I was like, I got the perfect case. So, and they were hilarious. They
thought you were making it up.
The reactions were right. The reactions were amazing. So we're going to do this with the dad. Me and Annie are going to do this with the Dad Challenge podcast. And I know he loves cases like this because he doesn't really follow true crime, but once in a while a case comes up that makes him go, oh man, I can't stop thinking about it. You know, this is this case for Josh. Yeah. So I told him, don't do any research on it.
Yeah.
You know, I might tell him to watch the documentary, The Body in the Snow, just so it's pretty fair. It's pretty impartial for the most part.
Yeah, I didn't think it was slanted. I didn't. I think they did have to look hard to find an anti-Karen Reed spokesperson,
because it doesn't cover even remotely all of the crazy stuff, you know, that we're all aware of who are following the case closely. So I figure if he watches that, I could be like, now we're gonna you're gonna see it's insane. So he's excited about it. At least he seemed that way when we texted in the group text today. So that should be coming soon. I'm really
cool.
excited.
Yeah, let us know about that.
We'll be looking for it. Will, you're just such a great guest. Thank you for bearing with us to go through everything. And we get so excited to be able to talk to somebody who knows the case, right?
Yeah. Because I'm just so into it. So it's really great to talk to other people. Well, it's just really great to talk to other people who are just so into it too, because it's just it's validating because you're gaslit this whole time. It's a nonstop gaslighting because it's this entire local government, cops, prosecutors, judges, that seem to be so pressed forward with this and you just can't even figure out why. It makes you question yourself. Am I crazy? Is this really happening? And so when you have people like you, especially people like you with law degrees and such experience with the law and experience covering cases with true crime, and to be able to talk to folks like you is extremely validating, you know, meeting Karen Reed's defense team and seeing how passionate they actually genuinely are. That is another advantage that I don't take for granted. That was extremely validating, because you wonder if you're going to meet them, are they going to is it just another day at work? They're going to go home and just forget all about it. You know, they are totally invested in this case. They are so passionate and they genuinely believe that Karen Reed is innocent. You know,
Shaggy, one of our moderators, is also dealing with getting a paralegal. I thanks you, Will, obviously. I mean, all because of you. And we thank you for meeting you. I mean, really. I mean, we thank you for
it was great.
giving us a chance to prove the fact that we're fair. And we've said all along, look, we believe the prosecution has to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's where we stand. They don't.
that's all. That's all it takes for me to respect a true crime channel. Like I get really frustrated. I've gotten really frustrated in the past with other channels who are just like, because they go with the mob, and they're already like immediately like, this person's guilty. You know what I mean? And then they go with the mob, and I'm just like, wait, what evidence are you seeing to make you jump to this conclusion? If there's evidence, okay, cool, we'll talk about it. And I was always skating uphill with this in the true crime community, you know what I mean? Because there's just this mob mentality. And now this case comes along, and it goes to show someone can actually be innocent, and there can actually be a conspiracy. It's not that hard to believe when there are interests that are involved. You know what I mean? Like, everyone seems to have an interest here for Karen Read to be convicted. Self-interest to be protected.
You want the person who's guilty to be convicted. And let me just point out, Josh.
Right.
Josh just gave us some piece of information that got into true crime with Cosmo DiNardo murders in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My mother was a first grade teacher, one of his victims.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Josh, we'd love to have you on to talk about how you want the person who's guilty convicted. Did they were able to prosecute that? Was, if I recall, it took a while on that one. Am I missing which one it is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania? What happened, Josh? Let us know, please. And we'd love you to come on the show and talk about it, because I think victims want the right person prosecuted and convicted.
Right.
I think true victims. Right.
Which makes it bizarre that the O'Keefes are still, after everything we know, trying to get Karen Read convicted. Like, that is another thought that just bugs me all the time. I'm like, how can you not see what's going on?
Or what's not going on, and what wasn't done in the interest of finding the criminal that took their son's life, or was somehow involved in it, however it unspooled. Because I wouldn't be satisfied. Oh, this is what you've learned. Well, have you done this, 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 and this? Oh, no, we didn't do any of those things.
Do you think that if this happened with Gabby Petito, that Joe Petito would be like, you picture Joe Petito, compare him to like Paul O'Keefe. You know what I'm saying? Joe Petito would be raising hell, going, I just want answers. I don't know who killed, my daughter. I just want answers. That's all. Like, and that was, when you look at the Gabby Petito case, that was all he was. He was just like, I just want the Laundries to talk to us. Right. And
I've met them. I have met that whole family at CrimeCon. They're a remarkable family, what they've done with the foundation, and they appear and try to educate and all. Just remarkable.
Yeah, Joe Petito became one of my favorite people, watching and how he handled, dealing with that situation. He was just so focused. He was emotional, but he was focused and rational. And but an angry father who wanted answers, and just a bulldozer at the same time, and I respected the hell out of him watching him handle that.
Yeah. And it just makes you wonder how the O'Keefe family is satisfied with what they've seen. I just don't get it.
That's right.
I don't get it. Hey, before we let you go, let me ask you this question about your buddy Aiden, because I was at that hearing the other day.
There we go.
And we did a defense, by the way. You saw we did a whole defense of him. Put it on.
Yeah, I mean, we think that's another example of the Commonwealth out of control. But now that
right there is another example that indicates Karen Read is innocent and she's being railroaded. Like,
and they're trying to shut him down because of his threat to their case. So I know you were there with him the night when I think the 17th alleged witness intimidation took place near D&E Pizza, as you guys were performing, some street performance going on there in front of the cameras. I know I felt intimidated just watching it. So have you talked to him since? It seemed, I talked to him right after, and I think he can't help but be a little concerned because this is still hanging over his head now.
Yeah, we talk sometimes. Yeah, I mean, he's scared, you know. And think about that for a second, you know, like any given moment, the guy so far hasn't done anything that is not within his constitutional rights to do, and yet he's been charged tens of times, you know, and then there's always something new where they're trying to revoke his bail.
Yeah.
So there's always just this scare all the time, and that's what they're doing, is they're trying to keep him in fear to try to intimidate him and shut him up. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to work, but the thing is I would never blame Aiden if he decided, you know what, I'm going to chill out. It's not worth it for right
tone
now.
it back just a little bit. Well, now, and for those who don't recall, this was another attempt to revoke his bail the other day, and the judge took it under advisement, oddly enough, and so has not ruled on whether he is going to revoke his bail or not, which is, you know, is maybe worse than just to tell me and let's do it. Whatever it is, decide. But now that's hanging over him.
Right. And I just, the whole thing with him is I would respect whatever he decided to do. If he decided to get even louder, I would back him up and I would get just as loud with him. You know what I mean? Because I just respect the guts that he, like, I understand what he's ultimately trying to do. He's trying to make a point, you know, and he's willing to sacrifice his freedom to do it. And he's already done it. You know, that's already done 2 months.
Yeah.
He could have taken a plea and rolled over, started talking about something else, but he took these guys on head on. And but that's the thing, is if he were to say right now, hey, you know what, I'm just going to chill out for a while, I would respect the hell out of him for it, because the fact is the reason why this has so much public attention, the Karen Reed case, is because of the spark that Turtle Boy lit. He's achieved what he was trying to do, you know. Like, now he can keep going, and like I said, I'll back him up. I'll march right next to him every time. But at the same time, if he just decided to just chill out, he has already accomplished what he set out to do. The world is talking about this case now, and they're going to talk about it even more now, and it's because of what he's done. You know, I mean, most of the information that we have that are just linked to the case, we knew from Turtle Boy first off. I mean, we knew about the connection to the why do we know that Auntie Bev is Auntie Bev? Because of Turtle Boy. Why do we know that her brother defended Chris Albert in that vehicular manslaughter charge 20 years ago? Because of Turtle Boy. Why do we know that Michael Proctor and the McCabes and the Alberts have such a tight relationship? Because of Turtle Boy. Why do we know that Jen McCabe was at Michael Proctor's house? Because of Turtle Boy. And those are just that's just off the top of my head. It goes on and on and on. And this is stuff that we knew about before the defense brought it up. A lot of these things before the defense would bring them up in motions hearings. So in pretrial motions hearings, and that's something that I don't think should be overlooked. I think it's irresponsible to overlook, because the fact of the matter is you cannot properly tell the Karen Reed story at this point without telling the Turtle Boy story. You can't be done, not properly.
Yeah. Well, we definitely wish him the best, and we hope that it's resolved the way it should be sooner rather than later, so it's not this constant threat. Not that they won't come up with another version of this threat, but you know, at least get this one done and we can move on. What do you think? We're 8 days into this trial. Going to be for sure another 6 weeks, probably, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
This is, I mean, dude, if we saw this long with just cross on Jen McCabe, I mean, what's really funny is the defense is going to present their case, but a lot of their case is just going to be resolved in cross.
Oh, sure.
You know, I mean, they're going to call. I mean, once you get Matt McCabe up there, they're going to mop the floor with Matt McCabe. He's just so easy. They did it last time. They're going to do the same thing with Higgins. They're going to do the same thing with Brian Albert. They're going to do, you know what I mean? It's just, now Brian Albert's going to be a tough nut to crack. Like the way he has stonewalling down to a science. When you watch him in that first trial, his eyes are stone cold and he doesn't crack at all. He just, nope.
Wait till the jury finds out that all these people ditched their phones and destroyed their phones and their SIM cards.
Yeah.
Except for Karen Reed, she didn't do that.
It's all coincidence. Don't worry about it. So don't
see.
Don't
Brian Albert is he was a fugitive task force investigator. Right. So his job, basically, in order to be effective at that job, it's fair to theorize that he has to learn how to think like a fugitive. He has to learn how to think like a criminal
to cover his tracks and to avoid capture. Yeah.
When I watched his testimony in the last trial, I was watching a criminal stonewall a lawyer on the stand. I was watching a guy who just knows how to lie, sit there and lie. And
he could be coming up. He could be coming up soon. So yeah. Well, it'll be exciting. It'll be interesting. We'll be watching you watching it. And Will, we always appreciate you chiming in. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and keep me posted on your next trip up. I won't tell the trolls.
Yeah, I'll be in touch about that.
We'll coordinate.
I'm hoping to see you when I'm up there. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
okay,
Michael puts himself out there because I keep saying, Michael, when are you getting arrested by going into the buffer zone? Okay.
I've been making inroads into the buffer zone, so far so good.
All right, Will, you're great.
All right, man. See you next time, buddy.
Awesome.
Take care.
Peace, guys. Thanks.
Wow. Cool. What a conversation. And Josh, wow, please, we want to read more up about your mom because we don't know if they caught.
I'd have to do some research on that.
Love to have you on. Really, love to have you on. Right.
What a horrible way to be introduced to the world of true crime, though.
Right, right. What a
most
terrible
people
way.
Who follow it, it's just this weird kind of vicarious, better them than me kind of feeling, or it's a soap opera like this case seems to be. But when it hits close to home like that, it's a whole different perspective. So
okay, so we had lots of you watching there. At one point, almost 1,000 people. I need to have you hit the like button. I didn't want to interrupt you because we had so many people chiming in with questions for Will and telling Will they loved him and answering questions and with your most generous donations. So when Michael Bryant does get arrested and put in the Huskow, he has bail money. Anyhow, but please hit that like button. That gets us into the algorithm, gets us pushed out. I do want to, I had one faux pas earlier when I talked about things that were important to me. I forgot to include my sister Joan, who's always watching this, and is interested in this case because she follows us. But she gave me a point. She said, "Hey, I opened YouTube and I got somebody else's video that I'm supposed to watch." I said, that's because we need those likes. We need people to push those likes, or else that's what'll happen. You'll get pushed out to somebody else when you want to come back to us. Come back to us. So you have to hit that like button. So just give it a push right now. It doesn't mean very much, and subscribe. It doesn't mean very much to you because we just got to give it a push. It's free. Subscribe, share, and then notify all, and we'll notify you when we're going to go streaming on Monday.
Yep, and check out the merch store. And I don't know when I'm going up next week.
I'm actually wearing merch again today.
You got merch on?
I have my
there
yoga
it is.
pants on. There you are.
You're branded. You're branded.
I'm branded with my yoga pants. Yeah.
My new zip is coming. My zip thing, full zip.
Yeah,
that has the other logo in it somewhere.
Yeah. You have one with the back one, and I have one for poker with the front one. Right.
You have to just serve one thing there. Anyway, so everybody have a great weekend. Take a little breather.
Thanks for spending Friday night with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Oh, Domino needs some serious attention apparently. Okay, partner, good job. You too have a great weekend and relax and get recharged. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Please try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenney Baden. Hit that like button, and we'll see you Monday.
From the stars.